I ended up with a Land Rover LR4. Never planned on getting an LR4, but here it is. I ended up with an LR4. Now I know most of you know me as the Discovery 2 guy, the big green Discovery 2, and yes, I love Discovery 2s. And I never intended to get an LR4, although I've always been a little LR4 curious, or LR3 curious, but somehow I ended up with one, and here it is. This is a 2016 Land Rover LR4 with the HD package, HSE and HD package. It has, what is it, 76,000 miles on it. I got a killer deal on this thing. But I got a killer deal for a reason. There was something wrong with it. What else would there be with a Land Rover, right? That's really unfair, and I hate that cliche. But it did have a problem, and I was able to fix the problem. That's going to be a separate video because that's a whole saga unto itself. So anyway, I ended up with this 2016 LR4 that I bought from a friend who generously sold it to me at a very good price, partly because of that problem. But it didn't start there. This starts way back in June of, the end of June of this year, this summer. I was scrolling through my phone, smoking a cigar, and I came across a Facebook post, and it wasn't a marketplace listing. It was just a Facebook post in the AZ LRO Facebook group, and it was a guy who had a gray 2002 Discovery 2 that he was selling for $1,500, which is cheap to begin with. But then I read 86,000 miles, and I was like, what? No way. And then sure, you know, I scroll through, I'm like, somebody's already snapped this up. I mean, there's no way I'm getting this. And nobody did. There was one guy who asked for the phone number of the seller, and he put his phone number there, so I texted him really quick, and he got back to me right away, and he said, yeah, I still have it. And I said, I'm coming over right now. And he's like, okay, come on over. And the problem was it was about 5 p.m., so all the banks were closed, so I couldn't get the money out of the bank. But I went to look at it anyway and to try to give him a deposit. Anyway, I drove way to East Mesa here in Arizona, and I looked the thing over. It was covered in bird poop and dust, and it was, you know, all nasty, but you could tell underneath it was pretty nice. I mean, it was in good shape. So the guy starts it up, it runs good, no bad noises or anything. Even if there were, for $1,500, I was gonna buy it anyway. I looked it over, I told him I want it. I'll come back tomorrow morning and buy it. I'll give you a deposit if you want. He said, no need, just come back tomorrow. So my generous neighbor here drove me over to pick it up. Made it home fine, nothing major went wrong with it on the way home. It, you know, the brakes were really a lot of travel for the brake pedal. That was a little crappy, but other than that, it felt pretty good, ran good. The AC worked fine, and it's hot here, so that was good. Anyway, I get it home, and I kind of start going through it and looking it over, and there's really not a lot wrong with this thing. It needed rear axle seals, power steering pump was bad. That was the worst of it. It actually turned out to be a power steering line. So I replaced the power steering line and the pump, used an AutoZone pump, really stupid. Took the AutoZone pump off because it immediately leaked, and I bought from Lucky 8 what they called an OEM pump, but it wasn't actually an OEM pump. It's like an all makes. I don't know why they call it an OEM, but anyway, it worked. And then I used the proper fluid, the Pentacin, and had no more problems with that power steering. So that was good. Then I did some interior bits and pieces that I put on it, and I have a parts truck in my backyard, so I was able to pull all these interior parts off, like glove box latch and a few things here, little odds and ends. And anyway, I got it all back whole again. One problem was the rear door was super locked shut. There was no opening it. So I had to open the door a little bit, and I had to cut the striker with a grinder. That was a nightmare of an ordeal. But after I got that door fixed, you know, all the interior was working. Mechanically, it was in good shape. It looked like valve cover oil leak, kind of not bad though. It was good enough to take on a bit of a road trip. So the family and I all hopped in. We were driving to a place called Alpine, Arizona. Beautiful place and a great way to get out of the heat. So we were on our way up to Alpine, going up this mountain pass. It's really windy, and I hear a bang, aluminum or metallic sound really loud while I'm going up this big mountain pass. And I thought, maybe it was one of the kids, you know, bottles, aluminum, you know, water bottles falling over or something like that. Anyway, we kind of get up to the top of this hill, we level out, and I gotta pee really bad. And I tell my wife, I got to pull over to the next, gas station. And, we're out in the middle of nowhere, kind of place called Forest Lakes. And there's a little general store. So I see the general store. I start hitting the brake, and man, does it feel wrong. Just, I don't know. Something was clunking, and it was all funky. And I'm like, this is not good. So I parked it. And it turns out that the whole caliper fell off. Not just brake caliper, the whole bracket. The whole bracket was doing this, swinging. And it actually swung back, and it grooved out the whole inside of the wheel. It was terrible. So I'm thinking to myself, what happened is the lower bolt fell out of that whole caliper bracket, and the top bolt was backed out. Like it was about to fall off. And this is like a possible catastrophic incident, right? So the owner of the shop, or the general store, said, hey, go park over there. You can lift it up and look at it and see what's going on. So I did, and he came out and he gave me tools, which I usually have tools with me all the time, but I didn't this time. So he gave me tools, and I figure out real quick what it is. It's that bolt that just completely fell out. That was the noise I heard. So he says, come back here, and I've got a bin full of nuts and bolts. I'm like, the old junk drawer. I've got a junk drawer too. And I'm thinking, there's no way we're going to find this real fine thread. This is for a Land Rover. This guy does hitches, trailer hitches, and side-by-sides, things like that. We're not going to find this bolt. So we're going through all of his bolts, and he pulls this one bolt out, and this ray of light shone upon it. It was the right thread pitch, but it was, it was too long. That was fine. So he had a grinder. So I cut the bolt down to the right size, ground the threads, put it in, everything worked. I think it was an hour. It was like a NASCAR pit stop. It was great. So I put the car back together. I actually went and checked all the other caliper bolts. They were all tight. And we were on our way. We went up and had a great time in Alpine. That was a little scary though. So when I came home, sorry, I'm sweating like bullets out here. It's just nasty. Anyway, I get home and I smell oil burning pretty badly. Well, it turns out the valve cover bolts are all loose. So I tightened those up. I'm thinking, man, this guy who owned it before me did not tighten anything. No attention to detail here. So I also found that I had the 3 Amigos on, and the wheel speed sensor was routed over the hub, so it got shredded like it would. I had to get a new wire and reroute that. That was a pain in the butt. And a few other things. Anyway, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I think I'm going to sell the green Land Rover, the big green Land Rover, and I'm going to build this gray one out and start over. It's kind of fun to build a Rover. So I listed the green Land Rover for sale, and it sold in 24 hours, and I got full price for it, and it was awesome. I sold that thing for $15,000, and the guy who bought it was a doctor who does a lot of hunting and outdoor activities. Perfect kind of toy vehicle for him, I think. But that worked out really great. Got what I wanted for it, and I think that was a good price. And it sold fast. That was nice. So anyway, the plan was I'm going to build the gray Discovery 2. And then I have a friend who has 2 LR4s. Not an off-roader, they just like LR4s. And we met up in Colorado. Every year we meet up in Colorado, and we do just a trip up there to Durango. And he was saying he was going to sell the LR4s. And I thought, okay, what do you want for them? I didn't know if either of them had the HD package, which is a requirement for me. Anyway, I did some research and found out this black one is HD package. And we got back here, and I took it and test drove it and made sure I wanted to buy it, and I bought it. So I got an LR4. And then I decided, I'm not going to do anything with the Discovery 2. I'm just going to sell the Discovery 2, the gray one, the 2002. So I basically flipped that car. I bought it for $1,500, unbelievably. And I put about $1,500 into it, and I sold it for $4,500, which is honestly, that was a really good price for that vehicle. I had 87,000 miles on it when I sold it. I mean, for a 22-year-old vehicle, that's awesome. Not sure if the guy who bought it thought it was awesome, because he's not a wrench gearhead, and it did have problems, and I told him about the problems. But anyway, that sold. So then I have to get this vehicle ready, because months before all of this, had planned to go on a trip with the Arizona Land Rover Owners Group to Colorado in the San Juan Mountains to do all the big passes like Imogene, Black Bear, Engineer, all that stuff for a week. So I don't want to do it on this thing with, it had 20-inch wheels on it when I first got it. Big kind of hoopty wheels. Like I can't do that. Can't do that kind of trip on these low profile tires and big wheels. So I ended up deciding on Tough Ant Simpson wheels, which I bought. And then I bought the Cooper Discover Rugged Trek tires. And I stuck with the 265/65 18s. Super happy with them. I know everybody always wants to go bigger tires, but I feel like on an LR4, you don't have to do a whole lot to these. They don't need a lot of modification. Tires, definitely. But beyond tires and wheels and a little lift, I did a Johnson rod 1.5-inch lift. I don't like the 2.5. Everybody goes to 2.5. It looks like Go-Go Gadget springs. It's a little too tall. And I'm a big believer in you want the least amount of lift possible to fit the biggest tire possible. Very simple. You don't want to raise your center of gravity for no reason. You don't just need all this gap between your tires, and unless you're rubbing, but you know that's where you go a little higher. But you don't need a bunch of lift if you don't need that for the tires. Anyway, so I did that. I did the wheels and tires, super happy, and then put a ham radio in. And I'm gonna make a really short video about that because I did a ham radio install. It's really discreet. And it really is dependent on the radio. It's a very specific radio I used for this. But I really like the install because the only thing I have visible in the vehicle is a microphone. There's no radio face. There's no speaker, external speaker. It's a very discreet install and I'm really happy with it. So those are the modifications. That's really all I did. And I love that I lifted this vehicle in 10 minutes and I didn't even have to take the tires off. That's how easy it is to lift one of these because you're just replacing these, these little rods. So I'm going on this big trip, which I plan to shoot video for, and so I'm going to be doing I've got all the transmission pieces over here. I'm going to be doing our fluids. I'm going to be doing a full transmission fluid and filter change on this. I'm going to be doing the diffs and the transfer case oil as well this weekend before the trip. Like I said, this thing's at about 78,000 miles, so it's overdue for that. And then I know these have crossover pipe issues, and I've got a borescope and I've gone down in all the nooks and crannies and stuff like that, and I don't see any coolant anywhere. I don't smell coolant and I don't see any coolant loss. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. And this has the later model coolant pipes, which are supposed to be less susceptible to catastrophic failure. They tend to leak. They don't have that seam that splits and then just dumps all your coolant. So that's good. So yeah, I plan to get this thing ready for that trip and hope to shoot a lot of video of that trip too. We'll see how this thing does off-road. I've off-roaded it a little bit and it's really good. It's really good off-road, but I haven't really even challenged, none of the things I've done have been a challenge yet, but, and they probably won't be on this trip either because, these are dirt roads mostly, nothing challenging. But if we find something, I'd like to try it out and see what it can do. What do I think of the LR4? I find that this vehicle is the best of all worlds. Every vehicle is a compromise, right? Everything. The Discovery 2 is awesome off-road. When they're modified, they're even not unmodified, they're great off-road. But taking a road trip in a Discovery 2 with that 4-speed transmission, that Rover V8, there's just no power. So, road trip wise, and I took a lot of road trips in my Discovery 2. Not the best vehicle. Pretty comfortable, but, not the best vehicle for road tripping, long road trips. Great off-road, but it just does everything. This thing eats up miles. It just eats up the miles. A friend of mine said that to me. He said, these things just eat up miles. And I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Goes down the road like a dream, like you're on a cloud. It's unbelievable. Any other vehicle I ride in now feels harsh and stiff. This thing is just so soft and the air suspension's amazing. So as a road trip vehicle, it's absolutely unbelievable. And then off-road, it's awesome too, because that air suspension. I know a lot of people put coils in these. I can't imagine doing that. No way would I put coils on this thing. I get it, the air suspension can be a finicky pain in the butt, but if you stay ahead of it, just like anything else on a Land Rover, you'll be fine, and you'll enjoy that. And I love that, you know, it's got the off-road mode. That's like 2 or 3 inches of lift. It's unbelievable. But yeah, I really think this vehicle is sort of like the best of all worlds if you're into off-roading, road tripping, adventure type things, you know, as an adventure vehicle. This is like, I can't think of anything better. Another thing that is just awesome, and all Land Rovers are this way, but this one in particular is just the sight lines from sitting inside of it. It's like you just see everything. The Discovery 2 is like that as well, but this is even more. It's almost like you're in a minivan, or so you feel like you're just. I just feel exposed. I can see everything, which is great especially when you're off-roading. You can actually see over the hood. This has the vision package too, so I have the cameras. I can actually use the cameras, which not as modern as, you know, what we have, you know, a lot of these like the new Defenders have now. It's not quite as fancy as that, but it's something. But I was going to buy a 4Runner. I really wanted a 4Runner. I love the look of the, I think it's a Gen 5. Not the newest ones, but the ones that have been around forever before that. And I rented one on Turo just to try it out and like see if I liked it. I really liked it. It was great. But you feel like you're just down in a cavern. You can't see over the hood at all. Like there's just no sight line over that hood. The windows are like this tall. I don't know how you do it. I feel like I'm in a cave. Compared to this, if somebody steps out of a 4Runner and sits in one of these, they're going to be like, whoa, it's like you're in a greenhouse. So yeah, I love that about this. It's amazing. But anyway, plan to do a lot more videos with this too. I know I've been slacking on YouTube and I just haven't had a lot of time, but with this big trip coming up, I'm going to be doing a video about that. I'll also be doing a video about the fluid change here. Might as well. I'm going to be doing it anyway. And then I'm going to do a review on these Cooper tires as well. I really spent a lot of time. I'm a tire nerd. I like to geek out on tires, read all the reviews and you know, the science behind the tires. And I feel like I picked a really good tire. And I'm going to do a review on these Cooper rugged treks as well. So stay tuned for that.